Hello everybody and welcome to my second video about TorqueX 2D. In this video I'm going to show you some basic stuff. I'm going to show you how to keep track of your player's orientation and action, and I'm going to show you how to animate your player according to the action and orientation. So let's get into the TorqueX builder. If you watch my first video, you should end up with something like this, and all it can do is, if we run it, you can move this ball around, you can make it jump, and notice it collides with the surrounding world, and that is basically it. And let's go ahead and get right into the animation stuff. Before you start using animations in TorqueX, you need to have some animation maps. And animation maps are basically a PNG image with all the animation frames. Here I have a dragon that is a idle animation, and I have a run animation. So this is this is the first frame, and this is the last frame. And by the way, these animation maps, I got those from the platformer kit that is available on the TorqueX websites. I think it costs $30 or something, not for the animation map, but for the whole kit. Anyways, to create animations inside TorqueX Builder, let's just go ahead and delete this. We don't need that anymore. So you click the Create pane up here, click Create New Material, and we find our Dragon Idle map. Yes, we want to add this. Then we can tell TorqueX that this is a cell map. It has 3 frames in each row, and it has 4 rows like that. We click Save, and then we need to make this material a animation. So we click New Animation and choose the material we just created. Select, add all the frames to the animation, and click how many frames per second you want, and I want 25 on this one. I don't know how the frame rate is on the video, but to me this looks pretty smooth. Notice this name here, we're going to use that later on. So we click Save, and we have an animation. So let's go ahead and do this for the run animation as well. It's a cell 3 and 4. Save, new animation, run material, all frames, 25, like that. Save. Okay. So now we have our standing or idle animation, and we have our run animation. So go ahead and drag the idle animation into the scene, and unless we do anything else, this object will collide with the bounding box, and we do not want that. So we edit the collision polygon, just do something very basic here, like that. Click Enter to get out of the edit mode, and click Edit, and now we need to add all the components that we need. So we have the collision component, and we want that to clamp, not bounce. We have the physics component, and let's give it a mass of 20. Then we need to add the movement component, and that works as default, and we need to add the force component, and say 1, 5, 1, add, like that. So let's click Save Project and Save Scene. And let's go to Visual Studio and make a build. And it builds, and let's go ahead and run that. And let's see. Okay, so we have our animation, and we can still move it and jump, but the animation stays exactly the same. So now we want to add, we want to gain control of which orientation, which way it's looking, and what's it's doing. Is it walking or is it standing? So the way we do that is now we go to the coding part. In Visual Studio we will add a new file called myplayer.cs, and we do not want it to be a class. We want to make two new enumerations. One called my player orientation, and the orientation can be two things. It can be left or it can be right. And we add another one called my action, my player action, and it can be standing or it can be walking. So these two enumerations, we add that to the movement component as public properties up here. Public my orientation, and my action as, no, let's call this player action, and let's call this player orientation. Right. If we build this, we will notice that torgx asks us if we want to reload the schema file, and we do want that. And if we go ahead and find the movement component on our object, we see that the two enumerations is actually visible from in here. That's pretty cool. Now we're not going to use them in here, we just notice they're there. Okay, so back to Visual Studio. I want these two things, these two properties, to be visible inside my game, just for me to see what my player is doing. And we do that in we have a class here called GUI play. It has a method called onRender, which currently displays player score and health level, and we do not want that. We want that to show our orientation and our action. So the first thing, yeah, I forgot something. In here we need to give this object a name in scripting. Let's call that my player, and that way we can fetch this scene object by this name. So let's go ahead and save this project and save this scene. Whoops, not that one. Back to Visual Studio. And so here in onRender we can get our T2D scene objects. We can fetch that from the toric object database. .instance.find object, and that's a T2D scene object called my player. We check if that is null. If scene object is anything else but null, let's try to extract the movement component from this scene object. Movement component, move component equals scene object dot components dot find component movement component, like that. And we check if that is null. If it is not null, then we know we have the right stuff. So we want this text to be player action and player orientation, and we have our player action here and our player orientation here. And let's go ahead and see if this builds. It sure does, and let's go ahead and run this. Notice the text in the top. It's always standing and it's always facing left. So now we want to be able to manipulate those two properties according to what the player actually does. And I'll go ahead and stop this. I've reached my 10-minute limit.